When I was growing up, it wasn't the greatest area. There was a community police officer. He kind of kept an eye out on me, stayed in touch with me. If I didn't see myself in any other field other than law enforcement and specifically Green Bay.
For all of my life, I was raised on the near west side of Green Bay. I was 14 years old and I was playing basketball with my brothers in Tank Park. And a police officer came up and approached us in the park and introduced himself. And he started talking about this being his park and his neighborhood that he was taking care of and looking after. And he started continuing to come around. He kept investing in our neighborhood, and I started seeing changes that I didn't think were possible. And I decided that I no longer wanted to move away. I wanted to stay in Green Bay. I wanted to be a community police officer, and I wanted to make the impact in my community that I had seen done.
Long story short, I was a violent offender. Originally there was a plan of action in place, but obviously things don't always go as scheduled. And when we approached and there's long guns, there's a dog, canine involved, at that point in time, something kicked in intrinsically for me that said, there's a 2-year-old kid in back, get him out of there. As soon as I pulled him out of the car, I just started talking to him. I immediately took the kid inside and said, let's order a Happy Meal. We talked. This to me was just a way of saying, you know what, kick it in.
It was a 10-year-old female who had called dispatch and she was crying on the phone stating her father was attacking her grandmother. And then the dispatcher said she could hear the 10-year-old girl scream and then the line disconnected. Once he was in custody and the scene was secure, then I started talking to the 10-year-old girl. And so as I'm talking to this little girl, at that point I was asking her, well, how scared were you? She told me that after she had called 911 that she wasn't afraid anymore, because she had called 911 and she knew that the police were coming and they were going to save her and her grandmother. It reaffirmed everything for me, why I'm here, why I do what I do every day is for people like that little 10-year-old girl and her grandmother.
We received an email department-wide about a lady who had a flag that was stolen from her residence on Delsman Street. The lady had a husband who was deceased for a couple of years and he was a World War II veteran. She didn't want to see the police, she didn't really want anything done, was just upset and wanted to alert us about criminal activity in her area. I'm a veteran myself, felt compelled to do something. We need to get a flag back to this lady, and made an arrangement where I showed up at her residence and presented her with a flag. She gave me a hug right away and was very, very emotional.
I was probably that same person that said, well, of course they have all the equipment they need, because why wouldn't we give them all the equipment they need? And the simple answer is they don't. So we have to, as a community, step forward, especially in the changing climate around the world, to make sure our officers are as safe as they can be, because safe officers mean a safe community.
I came from Los Angeles, and I spent 27 years there. Halfway through my tenure at the Los Angeles Police Department, they started up a Los Angeles Police Foundation. And at first I was a little skeptical, thinking, you know, well, what are they going to do with this? What can they do to make this community better? But after a while, I started to realize that Los Angeles was a pretty generous community. And all of a sudden, I saw that there were youth programs, and there was a magnet school that they started, and all kinds of things that were starting to happen that were really exciting to see the police department building that connection with the community, especially the young people.
There's some really good training that we would like to be able to give to the officers, but there's times we can't do it because of the staffing issues, because of the monetary issues. And then there's also some equipment that we would like to be able to get that would further enhance the officers.
You know, it's not as simple anymore as just handing out your football cards or talking to kids at the bus stop. We really need to engage the youth in our community.
At a young age, kids are very impressionable. We have a Police Explorer program where we work with juveniles age 14 to 20, and they learn the basics of law enforcement. We do a program called Bring Your Own 5, and that's a basketball tournament we do every Saturday in summer. There's a lot of options for programs out there. I was just discussing a new program today where I'd like to focus on the younger kids, whether it be age 6 to 15. We just want the youth to be engaged with the police department and see that we're not bad people and we're trying to help you guys.
I would say at least if not more, half of our calls are dealing with people that are mentally ill. And having that training has helped me, infinitely. And I think that everybody should be trained. I think everybody should have to go through it.
I think it would be important for all officers to have some sort of forensic interview training with children especially. They're a different type of the population. They require a little bit more different interviewing procedures than you would on somebody, let's say, that had just robbed a bank.
There are many trainings out there that talk about officer survival. And when I say officer survival, many times we think, how do they survive through a physical assault? But really what we talk about is survival through a career. Over time, that constant exposure to these horrible events that no other group in any community has to see on a regular basis really turns into things that push the officer sometimes to a point of, is this worth it anymore? Many times we see officers, and fortunately we haven't seen it so often here, but throughout the country, that just leave the job.
This relationship with the community doesn't happen overnight. There's not a statistic, there's not a bill to pay that deems that it's working. It takes time, and I think having some of the resources, whether it's training for the officers, whether it's community programs that are the first things to get cut out of a budget because you have to have a squad car, because you have to have certain things to just operate as a policeman, they're important. And this is a funding mechanism to help us and help the community grow together.
In Chicago at Cook County Hospital, when I worked there in the trauma unit for a number of years, I saw shootings every single day. Every day, 1, 2, 30 shootings coming in through the doors. Kids as young as 3 and 4 getting shot. People walking down the street. Just the amount of violent trauma was, it was, from a medical standpoint, very challenging and adrenaline building, but it wasn't a community I wanted to live in. I came back to Green Bay, this is where I'm from. I feel that at this point, no community is immune from violent threats, but I still truly believe that Green Bay is an overall safe community of good people.